80% of customers' data over a period of time by 2025 is predominantly going to be unstructured.
Anything to do with surveillance, anything to do with medical imaging, all of these are new technologies that today we are going to store and analyze.
Right.
So that data is doubling.
And that, with this amount of data being there in the picture, what customers are trying to do today is that, how do we build a data lake?
Customer today, the objective is to store in a single storage subsystem in such a way that he is able to access it from here.
We see a lot of, especially the media companies, adopting these kind of technologies, be it even a small VFX house to a very large multimedia broadcasters. They're all they've already been using the PowerScale set of solutions. Now, does that mean that it gets restricted over here, or is there much larger scope in terms of using these set of solutions when it comes to the right set of workloads for that matter?
Rolling.
Action.
And cut.
Here we are today with Naveen Reddy, who is the business leader for unstructured data solution at Dell Technologies. He is here to talk more about the various capabilities, what it brings onto the table, and how he's been able to help customers out in various segments. So Naveen, welcome, and I'm glad to have you over here today to talk more about the solution set, what you carry for the market.
Hey, thanks, Suman. It's an opportunity for me also to really, let you all know what we do at Unstructured Data Solutions at Dell Technologies. So, from a more, let me introduce what is unstructured data.
Right.
Okay. Unstructured data is anything that you do not store in rows and columns. If you've traditionally known data which you have stored in an RDBMS, right? Relational database.
Right.
It's a database, rows and columns. Any data that you store in a storage subsystem which is not in rows and columns is unstructured data.
Right.
So let's say a video, let's say a picture, let's say a scanned document, anything like that. So that's all unstructured data. So what we do at the Unstructured Data Solutions at Dell is basically we provide solutions for customers to store this unstructured data.
Right.
And what do the customers do with unstructured data is that there are multiple use cases and workloads which bring in the data, and then customer can do analysis, and then he can he can basically archive and for long-term retention, for compliance purposes, for analytics, any kind of a use case.
So you're obviously responsible for taking these set of solutions into the market. When I say these solutions, I'm obviously referring to the PowerScale and all the Isilon set of story which you have. And these are extremely well accepted by customers and heavily trusted with the kind of capabilities what it brings onto the table. Now, how do you see this? Is it an added responsibility that you need to continue working with your customers in the same fashion? Or is it that it still gives you room to do more things and give more capabilities for customers with the set of offerings what you have?
Right. So the brand name which is called as Isilon is a very old brand name.
Right.
And then it's been in the industry for more than about 15 years now.
Absolutely right. Yes.
So this journey began with Isilon Systems. Okay. Then Isilon Systems became part of EMC, and Dell acquired EMC, and then that's how it is Dell EMC. So the solution portfolio today we are in the 6th generation.
Right.
Okay. 6th generation, and that too the 6th generation is launched 3+ years ago.
Right.
So you see it's a big journey.
Right.
And then we've launched the PowerScale. Okay, that's, you can call it as Gen 7 or things like that, but it's a new family of products.
Right.
Okay. So if you look at this is a constant journey of innovation. Okay. We have to keep pace with the upcoming new workloads the customers are coming up with. Second is we look at the opportunity. The opportunity is huge, right? Today, if you're talking about the data set growing, we are talking about 2x, 3x kind of growth in unstructured data.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
So we have to keep pace, one, to meet customer requirements. And so over a period of journey, we constantly keep innovating. And like our global CEO and chairman, Mr. Michael Dell, like he says, innovate anything, but do it for human progress.
Right.
So we are completely in alignment with Mr. Michael Dell.
Makes
Right?
a lot of sense,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you spoke about this unstructured data growth. IDC predicts that it's going to be almost 3x of growth when it comes to by around 2023 when it comes to unstructured data, and same goes with Gartner as well, where they predict that 80% of customers' data over a period of time by 2025 is predominantly going to be unstructured. Now, in this whole scheme of things, where exactly does the set of solutions what you have, whether it's your power scale or the ECS set of the story what you have, where exactly does it all fit in?
So if you look at, there is video streaming,
Right,
there is medical imaging, there is IoT. So this is all unstructured data.
right,
Right? So if you see today, what customers at one time were generating data was more to do with ERP data,
right,
more to do with anything to do with databases,
Correct.
and anything to do with analysis and analytics on the database.
right,
Right? But it's gone beyond that. And what we are talking about is anything to do with streaming, anything to do with surveillance, anything to do with medical imaging. All of these are new technologies that today we are going to store and analyze.
Right.
So that data is doubling.
Right.
So as you look at today, let's talk about a bank. Right? Bank today is trying to analyze their customers, how their customers are behaving in social media.
right,
So if you want to really look at the data feeds coming in from social media and you want to analyze them and look at your customer behavior, so you just imagine the sources of data. And these sources just seem to be unlimited.
correct,
And there is a huge explosion in data. And IDC and Gartner are nowhere wrong. And their predictions are absolutely right. If we have seen it in the last 2 to 3 years, their predictions are absolutely bang on and just growing 2x, 3x. And if you see, if there is X amount of data in the world, 80% of that is unstructured.
I mean, that's a huge amount, right? Then obviously that brings into the point that with this amount of data being there in the picture, what customers are trying to do today is that how do we build a data lake, a platform wherein we can have data analytics running on this particular platform, and then they want to see how even the economies of scale also works in when it comes to this kind of a scenario. Now, while keeping all these three scenarios in place, where exactly do you feel that your set of solutions, what you carry today?
It's a good question, Suman. So when you talk about customers creating data lake, what is data lake? Right? It's a central store
Right,
of information, and customers can bring in data from a database. It could be a surveillance data, it
Right.
could be social media feeds, it could be any other feed. Right? Now the customer today, the objective is to store in a single storage subsystem in such a way that he is able to access it from anywhere.
right,
Right? So you talked about data lake. So data lake is not just, say, for example, you're bringing in, CRM data, or
Right.
let's say, for example, your call center data. That's not the end of it. So as you bring the different data sets from multiple sources, the data set just explodes,
right,
and that's the data lake.
right,
And then customers are today running analytics on this huge data set
right,
and trying to get business outcomes.
right.
So, yeah, like you said, data analytics is just on top of the data lake.
Right. It's all about helping customers in terms of making more informed decisions and
Yeah.
making sure that the data is intact, and you provide a platform where customers can actually store all these data in on a single platform.
Correct.
It doesn't matter where, like you said, whether it's coming for surveillance, whether it's coming from the CRM, doesn't matter. So it does really help customers a lot in terms of
Correct.
doing such kind of analytics, right?
Just to add on top what I said is that if you look at, you should, the customer should have the flexibility to get data from any source
Right.
and store it in a single place and create a single data net instead of creating multiple data silos. The moment the data is in silos, you cannot get a comprehensive analytic result out of it.
Right.
So hence, it makes sense to have a single data lake
Right.
that can be covering the entire enterprise.
See, what has happened over a period of time is that what we've observed, right? We see a lot of, especially the media companies, adopting these kind of technologies, be it even a small VFX house to a very large multimedia broadcasters. They're all trying to use, not trying to use, they've already been using the PAS-scale set of solutions. Now, does that mean that it gets restricted over here, or is there much larger scope in terms of using these set of solutions when it comes to the right set of workloads for that matter?
It's a very pertinent question, Suman, because everybody has a perception that Dell UDS or Isilon has traditionally been used for media and entertainment.
Very true, very true.
Okay, yeah. If you ask me, the product was created for a media and entertainment workload.
Right.
All right. But then that's not the end of it. We have let's look at a process industry for that matter. Let's look at, for example, a manufacturing industry.
Right.
Okay, process industry today, people are deploying IoT in the process industry and collecting data, which is a continuous stream.
Very true.
Right. So we need to provide solution to the customer, which is easy to manage and able to store that entire IoT data.
Right.
That's about the process industry. So it's beyond the media and entertainment. Then let's talk about the other set, which I said manufacturing.
Right.
Today we have a customer in India who's deploying surveillance cameras across the manufacturing line and is capturing the feeds to look at the end quality of the product.
Very true.
So what he wants to do is, if there is any anomaly in the manufacturing process, he's able to look at his video analytics and then we can exactly very quickly point out where the problem is occurring and thereby impacting the quality of the end product.
That makes a lot of difference.
You look at it. So it's got into manufacturing. I spoke about process industry.
Right.
Similarly, you talk about today governance.
Right.
Today, if you talk about safe cities, you talk about government initiatives. Safe cities is nothing but all about surveillance, right? If you look, the entire city is now under surveillance. There are several cities around the globe where they are able to really do analytics to find out who's the offender in a very short span of time, because the entire city is under surveillance and they are able to run very quick analytics.
Very true.
And if you have to do any of these analytics, you have to store data in one place, use the storage system in such a way that it's able to feed to your analytics system.
Right.
If the storage system is not able to meet up to the analytics system, then the whole purpose is lost. So you see, look at the multiple industry verticals that today Dell UDS is able to service to.
So. In other words, you call it that this is the basis to have a God's eye, right?
Yeah, so that's from a surveillance point of view.
From a surveillance point of view, yeah, that's how it works. Yeah. And how about its application when it comes to your healthcare industry or even the education industry for that?
Yeah, that's another one. If you look at now, you see, earlier if you go to a path lab, there used to be a slide. They have to take a blood sample and then usual microscope,
right?
And then they make an analysis and there's a report written, right? And then sent across to the doctor.
Right.
So it was a step-by-step process. It had its own time limitations and things like that. Today, this entire slide from a pathology standpoint can be digitized.
Right.
So you do the analysis, the data is captured, and then there is a central repository. So it's stored in a place.
Right.
And then the doctor can see it over the network.
Right.
And see the slide and make his decision.
Right.
And then there is also the added advantage of he could compare this slide with a previous record and do a comparison to find out and make his analysis faster.
Right.
Or if he wants to refer this slide information, he just forwards it to another doctor who's possibly sitting even in a different part of the world.
Very true.
And then seek his advice and make his diagnosis to the point. So that's about digital pathology.
Right.
Then you talk about imaging. Then you talk about, let's say, for genome sequencing.
Right.
Right. As you know, today we are all in this pandemic world, and there's a lot of this genome sequencing happening around virus and things like that.
Right.
But at the same time, even before the pandemic, there's a lot of genome sequencing happening in the world. People are trying to look at the genome sequences about various, I would say, let's say human beings or any other kind of biological information.
Right.
So all of that sequencing, if a scientist were to do, it is enormous amount of data, multiple copies of that genome, right? And then they have to draw analytics between them. You have to draw a sequence, right? So it's huge amount of data, and if you need to really support that genome sequencing application, you need to have a powerful, quick, storage system that can support the
absolutely.
application. Yeah.
So yeah, you spoke about one a very efficient place where the data can get stored, and then you also spoke about analytics happening at a real time basis, right?
Yeah.
So obviously, when you want to do such thing, you need to have a very high end technology in terms of whether it's SSD drives being in place or even the NVMe technology being there.
Yeah.
Now that said, we do see a lot of adoption of these technologies in the current power scale. And also the other set of storage platforms what you have at Dell Technologies. Now, what happens to SAS or NLSAS kind of drives being there? Are you saying that it's going to go obsolete?
No, I wouldn't say it would go obsolete, but I have the way you need to look at it from an industry. Industry continuously keeps evolving.
Right.
So you'll have newer technologies coming and faster technologies coming. So today SSD and NVMe is a fast storage technology. Correct?
Right.
Yeah. So there is a specific application for SSD and NVMe. So for example, you want to run an AI application. So AI application needs a high-speed data storage.
Very true.
So you keep the data which is I would say the hot data.
Right.
Let's say for example you're running an analytic application. So if you keep, even for a moment keep AI aside, let's talk about an analytics engine for a large data lake.
Right.
And then you have a data set which is hot data.
Right.
Right. You want to run analytics on top of that.
Right.
So you keep the hot data on the SSD and the NVMe layer.
Right.
And warm data, the data that probably the customer would like to not access it very frequently, but maybe once a week or once in a fortnight, he could keep it in the hybrid
Right.
tier. What is hybrid tier? It's a mix of SSD and spinning drives, like
Right.
SAS and NL
Right.
SAS and things like that. Right. Now, the metadata for the mid tier, which is the warm data, can be stored on the SSD, and the data is in the spinning drives.
Right.
And you look at a customer who wants to store large amounts of data because of a compliance requirement, let's say 7 years, let's say
Right.
11 years,
Right.
as per the regulations.
Correct.
So if he has to keep the data for a long term, it makes sense to keep it on an economical media,
Absolutely
which is spinning
right.
drives.
Yeah.
Now, to answer your question, whether spinning drives will stay long enough or not, it depends on what is the other most cost economical solution that will be available as a replacement to the spinning
Absolutely right.
drives.
Yes.
That's when the technology keeps getting obsolete. So there's usually a technology life cycle for every. There's a life cycle for every technology.
Right. So customers who are basically using such kind of technology at this point of time, they don't need to be worried in terms of are they using an obsolete one, or should they be upgrading into something like SSD or NVMe? I think it's all about workloads, and depending on what kind of data you're dealing with and what is that you're doing with your data.
Correct.
Basis that these kind of decisions has to be taken in terms of what drive type has to actually go in there.
And in from a Dell portfolio perspective, the Dell UDS portfolio, you could keep all of these three tiers in a single namespace.
That's the most best feature somebody can have.
So the customers need not keep looking around from
Right.
how do I manage this entire data set. The whole thing about when you have an explosion of the data, you need to have that ability to manage the data and not spend time managing the data. Spend time doing the analytics,
Right.
spend time doing the research part of it.
Right.
Keep the storage simple and easy to manage.
Flexibility, right? Yeah, absolutely. So what are the other technologies what you have, which is the heart of your entire unstructured data solution? I would say just the power scale set of solution, I would say, is OneFS. And it truly helps you out in terms of, when we talk about scale out architecture, or, making sure that, there's one pool of data and you can scale as and when you want and as and when you grow. And tell us a little more about it in terms of how exactly is it really contributing to managing this unstructured data growth as such.
Yeah. So OneFS is just one, we have basically three lines of unstructured data solutions.
Right.
One is file storage, the other one is object storage, and
Right.
the third one is streaming data platform.
Right.
So OneFS that you spoke about is the operating system for our file storage.
Right.
I'll come to that question. And similarly for the object storage, we have something called ECS.
Right.
Software called ECS, Elastic Cloud Storage. That's the object storage solution.
Right.
And we have software called ECS, managing the object storage. And similarly, we have a SDP software for our SDP platform.
Right.
Now, what the whole core of the whole thing is that OneFS, for example, let's talk file storage as the question came on file.
Right.
OneFS. OneFS is the heart of our Isilon and PowerScale platform.
Right.
Now, what it does is basically it gives multiple advantages. But I want to begin with, one important thing is that when you're talking about, picking up this journey on unstructured data, and then you have this. Let's take one use case of surveillance. Okay, so you could get data with a specific protocol and write it onto the storage system. And similarly, you have another application in the enterprise. You want to store the same data, that data into the same particular storage.
Right.
So 1FS gives you the flexibility to get data from any protocol, store it in the storage, and then also provide read access from any other protocol.
Right.
So basically, customer need not worry about managing multi-protocol support. It's all supported by 1FS.
Makes a lot of difference. Yeah.
That's one advantage. The second advantage is that when you are actually growing the data set size,
Right.
you keep adding storage capacity. And then also on a time-to-time basis, you keep refreshing the technology.
Right.
You add new and new generation storage, right?
Right.
For whenever you do any addition of capacity or doing a tech refresh, 1FS provides flexibility to the customer to be able to do any upgrades with zero downtime.
Right.
That's very important. Zero downtime is very important. Today, that's becoming important. As you see, you cannot. Where is the time for anybody to have a shutdown on a storage system?
Absolutely right. Yeah.
So it's almost like a zero downtime. In the matter of 60 seconds, one can add additional capacity. Push of a button, it takes 60 seconds, it identifies the new capacity, it just rebalances.
Right.
That's the beauty of 1FS. Similarly, it is about ECS, similarly, it's about our streaming data.
So, we talk about scalability when it comes to PowerScale. We talk about elasticity, buy as you grow, add as you grow.
Right.
So that is something which really gives a lot of flexibility for customers, to make sure that, their investments are put in to use at the right time. So the minute we talk about that, right, obviously the very first thing which comes into anybody's mind is that, yeah, cloud also does provide the same kind of flexibility for customers. So whether it's AWS, Azure, or even Google Cloud for that matter, how well integrated is the technologies from Dell with the set of platforms like these?
It's a very important question that you've asked, Samant, and it's pertinent in the current world, especially when customers are looking at flexibility in the cloud and all that. So if you look at it, we today offer 1FS on GCP.
Right.
This is exactly the same Isilon or PowerScale that a customer would otherwise keep it on premise.
Right.
The customer can order it through GCP, like a typical any service that is ordering from GCP.
Right.
And we provision a 1FS in the backend.
Right.
He gets exact same performance. Google, or for that matter Amazon, is not able to deliver the kind of read and write throughput that we offer in an Isilon technology, on-prem Isilon technology, on a cloud. But today, customer can actually have his 1FS, hosted out of GCP. So that's one solution that we have for the customers. So it's exactly the same flexibility. Tomorrow he wants to increase capacity, he can increase capacity on the 1FS platform, which is basically a PowerScale hardware. They keep adding depending on their requirements, right? So that's one. And then let's say, for example, they have a contract with Google for $1 million or $5 million or whatever it is. It's exactly the same billing system. They have prefixed rates. They agreed for a 1FS on GCP. It gets automatically billed. So it's that simple. Now coming to, let's say, let's talk about for Amazon, right? So we partner with Equinix. Okay, Equinix has a connector which your data, for example, which is on-prem, can be connected. Let's say, for example, customer wants to use the AI engine from AWS.
Right.
Okay, because it's possibly economically better.
Right.
Or possibly he just wants to use that AI engine for a short period of time.
Right.
So hence he doesn't want to do a capex. So he wants to go to a cloud service provider.
Right.
But then he's got a lot of data which is there already sitting on the Isilon system.
Right.
So Equinix provides that flexibility to customers, wherein with the adapter, the data sitting on-prem can get connected to the AWS AI, compute farm.
Right.
And they can use that compute farm, and with this adapter of Equinix, we have the same data available. Right. And what happens in this whole thing is that the data is still lying with you, so there is no egress charges. The customer has a full flexibility. So we are actually there on the cloud.
Right.
So the customer wants to take a cloud journey for, let's say, a file system, file storage kind of a system. So 1FS is available on the cloud, AWS, Azure, or even GCP.
Naveen, talking about cloud, right? we have to talk about the newest offering, which is going to be coming out from Dell, the Apex, right?
Right.
I'm sure this is going to be a game changer, not just for your unstructured data solutions. I'm sure it's for the entire plethora of solutions what you have. What do you see? What is the kind of opportunity what customers need to look forward to when that is going to be out in India?
Yeah, so Apex, once it is available as an offering in the country, the customers have the flexibility to defer their capex. That's one
Right.
biggest thing which is there as an Apex offering, and then they can actually really utilize what is needed today and provision what is needed tomorrow, only tomorrow. So they have that full flexibility, and it's just not for the Dell UDS.
Right.
It's for the entire Dell portfolio. So customer is basically given a platform. It's like just like a cloud.
Right.
Today customers order what they need on the cloud. With Apex, it's actually exactly the same. In fact, our global senior leadership talks that Apex is a alternate to the cloud.
Right. Yeah. Alternate to the cloud. Yeah. That's the way to put it. All right. I am sure it's going to make a lot of difference for customers as well as partners like us taking solutions to customers.
And good part, Apex is on-prem.
Oh, all right. Yeah. That makes that's a totally different scene
total
altogether
flexibility
in that case.
To the customer.
All right. Yeah. So, okay. Well, that said, right. We do see a lot of human intervention when it comes to managing technologies as such. So, there's a lot of adoption of, whether it's machine learning or artificial intelligence being built into all these modern technologies which are coming into place today. So, how much of this particular criteria or this particular phenomena can we see in the set of solutions what you carry from an unstructured data point of view?
So, if you're talking about AI, was a question around AI?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So, now what's AI? AI is about high performance number crunching GPUs.
Right.
That's basically the compute farm.
Correct.
Now, customers, when they're really looking at building AI ML platform, machine learning and a deep learning platform, obviously they have this number crunching GPUs with them, but then they also have a huge data set.
True.
Now, when this data set is available, they also want it at the speed at which the GPU is able to take the data and do the number crunching. If you don't have an equally powerful and equally fast storage that is supporting the GPU farm,
right,
the whole purpose of the machine learning and deep learning is lost.
Right.
The other important thing is, if you look at any of these machine learning and deep learning workloads, they have a huge data set. And it's not practically possible to store on the traditional storage system.
Right.
So it has to be something like Isilon, something like our PowerScale offerings that help customers to really work with their GPU farms.
Right.
So their entire AI journey is smooth. Like I said, single data set, huge data set. Why? Because it's all about training the system, right?
Right.
What is AI ML? It's about training the system.
Absolutely.
So you need training data.
Right.
So as the data set grows, you need to have a system that supports it.
Makes a lot of
traditional
sense.
Storage doesn't support. So you need to have something like PowerScale or an Isilon.
Now, how secure are these systems? As much as it can do a lot of things like whether it's AI, ML, and a lot of other features coming into picture, helping out in data analytics and everything. How well is this? How well does it support when it comes to building trust, and so that customers be rest assured that the data which is there on these platforms are completely secure, whether it's from any sort of cyber attacks, or it can be something like what happens with ransomware attacks happening in the recent terms, right? So how does that help over here?
So I'll begin this way. I picked up this information in the media.
Right.
In the first 6 months of this calendar year, there have been around 300 plus million ransomware attacks around the world. So everybody is today being kind of impacted by ransomware.
Right.
So let's talk about how a ransomware can impact an enterprise. We all know about it.
Right.
So it can have a huge implication. There could be a financial implication. There could be a compliance implication. Anything. Right. Now, so when a customer stores data on Isilon or ECS for that matter, so we have ransomware protection solutions as well from our side.
Right.
So we partner with a company called Superma.
Right.
And how it happens is basically we can do two kinds of strategy. One is to protect the data, which is basically just the data protection part of it.
Right.
So you can basically take this Superma's ransomware defender to protect the data on the Isilon storage.
Right.
While the customer is having their enterprise-wide ransomware protection policy. But even if somebody gets through that protection, the data can still be safe because we have this offering which can protect the Isilon subsystem
Right.
or the ECS subsystem in the enterprise.
Right.
Now, this is one part of protecting the data. And the other way is that the customer can have two clusters, right? And he's protecting the data on the primary cluster, and primary cluster is replicating the data onto the secondary cluster.
Right.
We can also go one step further and create an air gap between these two clusters.
Right.
So what happens is that this is the hot cluster where the data is being continuously being written, and just in case that, let's say for example, the attacker has been managed to even come onto the Isilon primary system.
Right.
Right, we can create an air gap by which you cut off this second copy of the cluster.
Right.
Okay, and then there's no way that the attacker can really go into the disconnected cluster.
Right.
Right. So how does it help? The air gap helps to quickly recover. So tomorrow the customer can very, very quickly recover from the attack, and business is as usual. So it's not only about the cyber threats. One customer has to really plan for is the protection part.
Right.
The second most important part is the recovery part. If you take a long time to recover, it doesn't make sense.
It's as good as not having any solution in place.
So we have the solution for the customer from both perspectives.
Makes sense. Yeah. So let's talk about acceptance for that matter. There's a great amount of acceptance of these technologies, especially the past scale technologies in the market. I will still take the name Isilon. I know it's an aged one, but still I'd like to take Isilon as such. 5 years in a row, you're a leader in Gartner Magic Quadrant. That only shows that how well you have executed on the vision what you had created on yourself in terms of how well the customer and the product has to be performing in various different scenarios. Now, do you see that as an added responsibility, or do you say that this is the way we work and we are going to continue doing the same work?
Yeah. So see, being in the leadership quadrant on the Magic Quadrant of Gartner, it's very important. Once you get there, the next step is to keep the position and grow from
right.
there. Yeah? So,
very true.
So this means a constant, continuous innovation, product
right.
innovation, technology innovation, adopting new technologies, and things like that. So if you've seen Dell, we have not only been able to bring that new technology across to the customer from a visionary perspective,
right,
and then get the new technology offerings for the customer, but at the same time, what we have been able to do is to execute our strategy in the field, where we are able to reach to a huge customer segment and deliver and support.
right.
So we are able to do that because of our reach. If you see today, Dell Technologies has probably the largest reach
Absolutely.
in terms
No
of the
doubt
customer
about it.
base.
Yeah.
So we are in a position to innovate, we are in a position to reach to the customer.
Right.
And I also would like to say not only through Dell Technologies direct, but we also have a huge partner ecosystem.
Very true.
So with these two, Dell Technologies are directly being present as well as a partner ecosystem are able to really effectively execute in the field. So that's how we are able to constantly keep this leadership position.
Right.
And that's what we have been able to do in the last 5 years. So the last September, we were the 5 years in a row
right.
a leader in the Magic Quadrant.
Right. Yeah. So it makes a lot of sense for customers to look at these kind of technologies which have been more proven, adopted pretty well, and these technologies which have been executing on their ideas pretty well in the market makes a lot of sense to them.
Right.
Now that brings to a little more personal question. You have spent a lot of years giving technology solutions, IT solutions to customers in in India and probably even outside of India as well. Now, how similar or different has been your journey when it comes to Dell Technologies?
So Suman, basically, the way I look at it is, I look at what is the customer, I would say, what is their business outcome,
right,
or what is their problem.
Right.
So if there's a problem, how do we solve the problem?
Right.
Or what is the business outcome that they are looking at?
Right.
So I've traditionally been involved in, throughout my career is to provide the solutions to the customer,
right,
an end-to-end solution, or really a problem-solving
right,
solution, right? So that has been my, typical journey through my last few years of sales. And with Dell Technologies, it's no different. If
right,
you look at the UDS portfolio that we have, we are able to provide an end-to-end solution for the customer for that specific area of data
Right,
storage.
right.
Data storage is unstructured data storage is quite complex.
Right.
So we're providing a very simple to use, simple to manage, unstructured data storage for customers.
Right.
Yeah. So my current journey with Dell has been very similar to my
What has
past
been?
selling different kind of solutions.
Great, great. Now talking about that, you have partnered, you have various partners in the market. Chavans Technologies also happens to be a key partner for Dell Technologies. How important, or I would say, how is this particular partnership making a lot of difference in the way we are engaging with a lot of customers in the market as such?
So, Sumant, I would say, a partner should have an approach to have, end-to-end solution offering to the
Right.
customer. So, customer has a particular project to be done. So, it could involve, let's say, for example, multiple, layers of the technology. Could be server technology, storage, could be software application and things like that. So my experience so far has been with Chavans is basically that you're in a position to go and have that consultative selling to the customer. You're
Very
able to talk at the application layer, you're able to talk at the network layer, you're able to talk at the storage layer, compute farm, and things like that. So as long as we are able to really provide that end-to-end story with customers and look at their end business outcome,
Right.
I think we're all set. And then I feel Chavans is doing a very good job in that
This spot
space.
on, we've been doing that. Yeah.
So if you look at some of the joint wins that we have seen, we gave UDS part of the portfolio to you, but then
Right.
at the same time you partnered with Dell on the server side and the other components, and then
Very
you also have your extended partnerships with application vendors, and I think you also have a cloud practice.
Absolutely
So
right.
overall, if you see, what you're doing is basically balancing it out and providing the right fit to the customer. And as long as we do this right, then we are there.
Makes a lot of sense. The approach what we have taken at our organization is that it's more people centric. When I say, I would not even want to say that it's just customer centric. The reason why I say people centric is because it's about not only about customers, it's also about their customers, their vendors, their employees. How do we design, or how do we bring in this ecosystem wherein they're able to work in a much more smarter way, in a connected way, and making sure that they're able to reach their objectives of their existence as such. And that's what gives us all the kick to be in this business, and to make sure that we see customers being successful as well.
Right.
So on that note, Naveen,
Yeah.
I'd like to say thank you for being with us. It's been a pleasure talking to you today. A lot of insights being shared, and I'm sure we're going to be able to take a lot more stories of this sort to our customers and be able to help our customers in solving daily challenges, and probably even bring out better perspectives for them in terms of taking their business forward. So thank you again, Naveen.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks,
you so
Suman.
much.
Yeah, thanks for giving me the opportunity, basically, to really talk a few things around Dell unstructured data solutions and how we are able to partner with each other. So let's say that we are able to take it to the next step and next wave of growth.
Absolutely.
And good luck to you.
Yeah.
And hopefully you sell more and more Dell Isilon and PowerScale.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah. Bye.
Thanks.